So when you go to today's Moodle page, there's four photographs that you're going to download. One of a field, one of a horse. We also have a little Karate Kid, and one with a rope. And the rope's going to be kind of the most fun project. It's actually not in the book, but you'll see what we'll do with it first. For the first project, open up the, let's do the field and the horse JPEG together. I want to show you how you can do a lot better job with the layer masking between two different layers. So let's say I had this picture of a horse and I wanted to put him in front of this picture of the field. Now we know how to make layer masks before. You open up your layers palette and you click the little layer mask. But this horse has a unique problem to it. Notice that his hair has its very, very fine wisps going along it, down under his chin, along his back. And if we simply did a layer mask and started painting over it, it'd be very, very difficult to get, let's see, just those fine wisps of hair. So let me show you how you can make a better selection of it. I'm going to delete my layer mask. First thing I'm going to do, just grab your quick selection tool and make a general selection of the horse. So I'm going to click and drag over him. I'm not going to worry too much getting every little detail. This is ears, nose, mouth, da-da-da. So, I've got, whoa, too close. Yeah, pardon me, let me back up some. If I hit Control and zoom in, scroll bar, I can zoom in, there we go. Zoom in the screen. If I hit Command, I zoom in the whole thing. So I've got his ear. Notice I haven't gotten anything up here. I haven't really gotten the outer edges, just a general selection of it. With this selected, if you'll hold down the Control button and click on the inner area, you get a pop-out menu. One of the options is to refine the edge, and this is the new feature. With Refine Edge, it'll open up another dialog box, and this will give you several options to choose from. First, the most important one is how do you want to view it? In general, what I always use is just reveal it on the layers. So this will show you what your selection looks like in contrast with all the other layers behind it. You can already see it's got the layer masked out. So everything that I had selected, you can see the background layer of the field behind it. What's good with the Refine Edge is you can use the rest of the sliders to define the edges of the horse itself. So I can choose the radius, and when I bring it out, you can start to see it'll build on the outer edge of that radius. And it'll start to pick up some of the wisping, some of the inner edges of that one. Now this is kind of more of an art to it. If you need to reselect an area, so it's picking up, it's losing a little bit of his ear but still picking up some of the hair, I can click and drag over this area and it'll start to pick up more of those pixels that I want to do. Let's bring it back down. You can also adjust the edge itself. So let's turn on smoothing, maybe feather it a little bit. I can even go down to his chin. I know there's some small hairs down here. When I let go, now it's starting to pick up that particular edge. Like I said, it's something you kind of just play around with, but the more you do it, it'll allow you to very quickly. So let's say you were working with someone on a photo shoot and they had their hair blowing in a breeze. Well, it'd be forever trying to mask out all of their hair. Using the this effect, we'll be able to pick that up a lot better. Let's see. Maybe turn the radius down. Anywho, once you keep playing around with it, very last option is how do you want to output it. Usually I choose decontaminate colors because that will refine the colors and make sure that everything you have will be appropriately exported. Just as a general practice, make sure it's clicked out. For ours, we want the new selection to be turned into a layer mask. You can turn it into a selection, just a new layer by itself. But with the new layer and the layer mask, I'm going to hit OK. Now I've automatically got this horse created with the layer mask on top of it. Does that make sense? Very simple, very easy. So rather than having to create a new layer mask, paint it out, having to worry with everything on top of it, in just a few short clicks, choose Refine Edge and it will automatically do the work for you from there. Okay, so that's the first one. Simplest one that you can do. Second one involves the little Karate Kid picture. This guy. With this one, there's another way you can make selections. Rather than just using your selection tool, there's a way you can paint in the specific areas that you want to have selected. And there's advantages and disadvantages, so I just want to make you aware of it. If you look down at the very bottom of your toolbox, there's this little button. If you'll double click on it, it'll bring up the options for it. Always want to make sure that selected area is selected, and you'll see what this will do when I have it selected. This is called the Quick Mask options. With Quick Mask turned on, you can use your paintbrush, and just like in a layer mask, you can only work in black and white. Wherever you paint over, it'll start turning it red. So I'm going to quickly paint over this kid's area. If I was to exit out of the Quick Mask area by clicking on the button again, everything that I now painted over is now turned into a simple selection. And you can also feather the edges of your brush, and it will feather the edges of the selection, and it will change the opacity whenever you cut something out. So I can turn back on the quick selection, turns everything red, very quickly paint over the area that I want to have selected. So I'll quickly choose him out. You can see I'm not doing a good job, but the main thing is you can always swap back and forth with your brush, paint out an area. If you're painting with white, swap back over to black, repaint it in.
How did you swap over?
Just if you hit the X key, it'll swap your foreground and background color.
X key?
That's all I'm doing to do that. So X key, swap back to white, and I'm unpainting that area. So with him selected, I can hit the Quick Mask button again, and now I've got the marching ants going all the way around his figure. Some more options for selection. If you haven't found these already, you can go up to the Select menu, down to, there's the Refine Edge again. That was the same thing that we're doing, to Modify. Under Modify, if you need to grow whatever selection that you've had, like by expanding it or contracting it in a little bit, here's two options that allow you to do that. You can also smooth out if you have like a rough selection. So if I wanted to expand it, actually grow my selection around him by just a little bit, choose Expand, and then type in usually the number of pixels. So I can bring it out by, say, 5 pixels. When I say OK, you can see now the border around him is completely selected from there. Here's what I want you to do with this. Once you have him selected, I want you to make a copy of him, so Command-C. Then I want you to do the Content Aware fill to get rid of him. To quickly do that, hold down Shift and press the Delete key. That'll bring up your Fill dialog box. You can choose Content Aware from there. Say OK. And does a pretty good job getting rid of him, turning in the background and everything else from there. Since he's copied, I'm going to hit Paste and paste him into his own layer. Now you can do a better job of cutting and pasting him out for what you're doing. The main thing is you want to grow your selection just by a little bit, because if I just cut him out, it'll leave a fine border of a few pixels like around his cape and around his jeans that give you an indication that something was there. But by growing it out a little bit, it does a little bit better job of getting rid of the pixels that are around there. Does that make sense? Here's a new coolest feature that's in Photoshop. With layer 1 selected, so that's the one the little kid is on, go back up to Edit. We're going to use what's called Puppet Warp. Puppet Warp allows you to change up the position and dimension of whatever is on a layer that you have selected. Just like with Liquify, you have the tools to push pixels around and it keeps everything together, makes it look fluid. Puppet Warp allows you to warp specific areas that are on a layer. When you have it turned on, it creates kind of this mesh that's on top of it. And all the options for this, of course, are up in your control panel. By default, you normally want to just work in normal mode. Distort will do some different things, rigid. Y'all can play around with that. You can change up the density of the mesh. So under normal, it's kind of a medium, but if you had fewer points, It'll work a little faster, but it gives you less detail. You can add more points. And it looks like he's just covered in complete spider webs from there. We'll keep it at normal. We're not going to worry with any of the other things. Under Puppet Warp, you can click on a specific area. Notice my icon looks like a little pin, thumbtack. And you can add points. These are called control points. When you click on them, a little point will be added there. In general, you want to add more than 2 points. So I'm going to add one at his foot, one at his knee, and we'll say one right at his hip. I can then click on any one of these control points and then move that leg around, and you'll see that it moves the object along with it. Now keep in mind, the more you move it, it'll start affecting certain other areas, so you may want to add some more different control points that allows him to move around. So if you needed to just adjust somebody, say their arm was up by just a little bit, this is a great way to be able to do that. You can even straighten them up, so I can put one, say, at his head, one at the middle of his torso, and I can bend them, push them up this way, and realign them kind of like a puppet, hence the term Puppet Warp. Pretty cool? For this one, I want you to just control him very simply like this, play around with cutting him out, and make him look like he's jumping up, doing some sort of karate kick, karate pose. If you need to delete any of these points, you can always hold down the Option key, hover over a point, and your icon will turn to scissors. Try it again. And it'll delete out that point from there. As soon as you're ready to lock it in, you can always hit the checkbox at the top or hit the return key. And we'll give it just a second. There we go. And it will undo, or it'll warp him into there. One thing to keep in mind is, in your layers palette, I didn't do it for this one. Never mind. Sometimes it'll create, for whatever reason, didn't do it for this one, almost like it was a special effect under there. I'll have to look into why it didn't do it for that one. But it warps it, and that's what you've got from there. He's on his own specific layer. So this is the second really simple one that you'll work on for today, just the exercise. Here's the final one for today. I want you to open up the rope JPEG. Create a new document. Now the rope is about 14 inches wide, so your new document is going to be 14 by 8 with a resolution of 200. We'll go back to the rope. I want you to cut it out, so the rope has to be on its own layer in order to use the warp tool. So let's see, I'll just use the magic wand. Cut. We'll go back to our new document and paste it in there. With it in this new document, make a new layer. Find a good scripty font. So in this case, I've got a good script font that I'm going to choose from. Type out your name. You could write out your name if you wanted to. I just find it easier to use a pre-made script. It kind of looks better anyway. Going back to your rope layer, I want you to make several copies of it, probably because you'll need it and won't be able to stretch out through the whole thing. Choose one of the layers and turn on Puppet Warp. If you ever want to hide the gradient mesh, hitting the little checkbox at the top, Show Mesh, will turn it off, and then you can just see what you're working with. Start creating points. Uh-oh. Haha. Let's back it up. Oh, why did it do that? Y'all, hold on a second. Okay, well, that's going to mess up my rope. That's okay. Create points along the rope, and if you haven't guessed, what I want you to do is to move the rope along the path until it fills out your entire name. As you do this, however, you can see it'll start to automatically kind of twist and move the move the rope in ways you may or may not expect. So it will take a little bit of practice to do this. If you run out of rope, that's totally okay. Just grab your eraser tool and erase away the rest of it. This is why you did multiple ropes. I've been working on one before I came in. This is sort of what I got with. I could play around with it a little more to do a little bit better job. I actually found this tutorial online, and I've given you the link to look at it. There's a great little website, if it decides to pop up. There we go. that goes into full explanation of how to do this. So he's using the Puppet Warp as well, choosing a rope, starting to, and all he's spelling out is the word rope. This is what you're left with at the end.
What is that website?
At the very bottom, the last exercise,
Oh, okay.
you can follow that one. It's a long one, but you can actually go to Google, type in Puppet Warp Rope, and that'll be the first one to pop up. Later on, he goes back in with the Dodge and Burn tool and adds shadows to the to where it's overlapping. He even plays around more with the Distort to add a little extra effect to a second rope, and then adds a background to it as well. What I'm looking for your exercise, say again?
You kind of misspelled it.
R-O-P-E?
It's not cursing at all.
I didn't write it out, so I'm just going with them.
Sorry.
Once you're done, all I'm looking for this one is for you to spell out your name. You don't have to spell out rope. Spell out your name in cursive, and you'll save all of these as JPEGs, upload them to Moodle for today. All good? Alrighty, also, if you look at the top of your notes, just like the other ones, if you need any questions about this, I'm giving you the page numbers that's in your book, and you can look at to work through those. Alrighty.